Well, hello everyone. So this would be a Laravel beginners tutorial step by step, and we'll walk you through how to create a very simple website like this using Laravel and Laravel Blade templating engine, and where you'd get data from backend from database. At the same time, we'll also learn how to save information in our database and edit from database, and as well as update them. Okay, so this would be a beginner's complete guide. This would be a responsive website, as you can see. Yes, and you'd be also able to click on this and go to a different post section where you'd see the detailed information. You can once again come back. So this would be very powerful yet simple Laravel beginner's guide step by step. So first go ahead and try to install and follow me how to go ahead and install Laravel. So next I'm going to explain to follow two of my tutorials to install Laravel. So you need to come over here and you need to install Laravel either using this one. Well, this is for Mac installation and this is for Windows installation. Okay, so these are two tutorials that I have created early, either for Mac or for Windows. Okay, all right. So once you go ahead and install, first you'll have the idea that how to install Laravel app either on Mac or Windows. Okay, so that should be the basic idea, and these two tutorials will do you step by step. Okay, now this is on my website, so if you don't want to follow it from here, you can also follow them from the video description link below, so you can check that out, and those two links will take you directly to the tutorial. Okay, well, anyway, so now this two installation, you have to make sure that you have PHP and Composer installed, and they also cover these two things. Okay, as well as end of this tutorial you will see how to install Laravel from this tutorial. But now for me, I'm on Mac, so over here first I'll do PHP version. So I'll see my PHP version. So this is my PHP version. Okay, so whatever you do, you can also check your PHP version. So I think if you're following along with me with these tutorials, most probably you'd be using 7.3 or 7.4. It doesn't really matter. And we'll also see that we'll also have Composer. Okay, Composer version. All right, now this tutorial also lets you know how to install MySQL, so you'll follow along with that one. And this tutorial for Windows, we install it using XAMPP server. Okay, so that also comes with MySQL. Okay, anyway, so over here I'll check my MySQL version, MySQL. Okay, so I do have installed MySQL. Okay, now I'll do clear over here. Now I'm in this folder pwd, so this is documents Laravel folder, and pretty much over here I put all of my Laravel applications, test applications. Okay, so here I'll create a Laravel application using Composer. Okay, so I would do Composer, create project Laravel. Okay, and now the project name I'd say starter app. So it would download a Laravel source file and put it in this folder. Okay, and if you followed along with me, they should do the same thing. But now regarding the app name, it could be anything, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so I would hit enter. Okay, now it would install the thing, and as it installs, let me walk you to another beautiful website, laravel.com. So if you always want to know about Laravel, here this is their official website, and you should be always here. Okay, so you can just go ahead, click get started. Okay, so pretty much over here in the documentation, I would say this is a complete documentation, any kind of web framework out there. Okay, Well, yes, it's been installed. Anyway, so if you encounter any problem, you can also find directly in the documentation, and it's a very friendly documentation. Okay. All right. So I've created those two tutorials over here, actually based on this documentation over here. Anyway, so this documentation should be one of your best friends for learning Laravel. Okay. All right. So we'd come over here and we see that Laravel has been installed here. It says publishing complete and application also generated set of key. Okay, now here I would do clear first and then I would do ls. So now over here this is my directory. So I would go inside this directory. I would do cd starter app. Okay, now over here I would do one ls. Okay, now this is my Laravel application source code over here. Okay, all right. So before we go ahead and take a look at the structure over here, we do one interesting thing. Over here we do this one, PHP Artisan serve. Now if you run Laravel application regardless Windows or Mac, you should run this one if you're doing it locally. So in your local host, then when you run this command inside your application folder, then it would boot up, it would start our application. So we would hit enter. Now it says that starting Laravel deployment server at this address. So we'll just go ahead and simply copy and put it in our browser. Now if your port 8000 is occupied, it may start a different port. Okay, now we would come over here and we'll hit enter, and this is what we see as our default Laravel installation, and this is pretty responsive. Okay, as you can see. Anyway, so now if you click on this, they will take you, first one, it will take you to this official documentation site, and this is where I took you early. All right, so the latest version is 9 point something. Anyway, so now we'll go back to our local host server over here, and you can also go to Laracast. This is another authenticated source for learning about Laravel. Now over here they have more details. So for our case, in this case, we are doing a beginner's startup code that would help you go up and running with Laravel application. Okay. Anyway, so now with this, we know that our application has started. Well, as you click on these things, this menu buttons or items, and you would see that over here you might have some response back. Okay, because the server is live and it's doing things. All right. Okay, so as you see, we went back and server has a request, and it printed over here as a part of the log. Okay, and this happens in your local host. Now, once again, over here, I would put up another another terminal, and I would go to my Laravel application folder and Laravel over here, and I would do cd starter app. Okay. All right. Now on Mac, I would do open dot, and it would open this directory. Okay. So this is the directory where we are. Okay. All right. So now these are the files. So what I would do, I would go ahead and open these files in VS Code. Okay. So I'll close up my other windows. Okay. Now over here we see that Laravel starter app. So if you want to follow along with me, go ahead and install VS Code. I already did, so I'll drag and drop on VS Code, and VS Code and open it up. All right, so this is where we are right now, and over here we see our applications folder, and everything else is here. Okay, now we'll skip this one. So one of the important thing about your env file that you should know if you're working with Laravel, now over here the basic configuration is pretty much here. Now here application name is Laravel, and this is the key that has been generated when we install Laravel, and then debug is true in our case, and we are doing localhost. And another important part for now is this database. But for now, we didn't connect a database, which we'll do very soon, and we'll take a look how to do that. Okay, so default configuration is MySQL, localhost, port, and things like that. Okay, well, now another important folder is this app folder. Now app folder over here, if you're going to start, most important folder within it is this HTTP folder and controllers folder. Now there is a controller over here, as you can see, and over here we do have our PHP. Okay, that's how you start a PHP file with PHP tag. And here we have controller that extends base controller. Okay, now very soon we'll create more controllers, and in that case we'll extend this controller. But of course, in return, right now this controller is extending base controller. And one of the things we'll see quite often is this namespace. Well, for a controller like this one, which is controller.php, it means that where this controller could be found. Okay, so this controller could be found inside app, HTTP, and controllers folder. So app, HTTP, and controllers folder. Okay, so that's the namespace. So if you're going to create another controller over here in this folder, you will write the same namespace for that controller as well. Okay, now these are other controllers or other packages. They are in different folders, but we can track them using this one. Okay, so this is the path, and over here we use the keyword use to tell that where you can find these things, right? And actually you can see that we are also going to use them over here. So over here we have inside Illuminate, routing, and controller folder, we have base controller, and that's the controller that we are using. Okay, now of course Illuminate is over here inside this vendor folder, and over here you will have a folder that we would call, let's see, Laravel. Okay, so inside Laravel, inside framework, you will have source folder, and here you do see that we have Illuminate, and this is here actually the Laravel source code and the core part. Okay, now here you do have different, for example, if you're going to go and see this one, so here we see routing, which is routing this one. Okay, now over here we have controllers. Okay, so this is the file we are talking about. Okay, all right, so this is the file that's been extended from over here inside our controllers, which we saw earlier. Okay, so whenever you see use, actually that pretty much tells you where this file, certain files or PHP file could be found. Now, especially for Laravel file itself, the source code, they're all in vendor folder. While in vendor folder, you can also install third-party libraries, and there is some setup for that. But for now, will not see that in detail. Okay, so but we have to know that a lot of the files dependencies would be coming from Illuminate, from this space. Okay, or from this folder or this namespace. Okay, all right. So yes. But this is, for now, that's okay. We are not going to do anything pretty much with this. So if we're going to create a new controller, we'll just go ahead and just we'll extend this one. Okay, all right. So that's one important folder, and we'll be working very soon with this. And the other one is this resources folder. So inside resources folder, we do see there are different folders for your CSS.js, and this is for language support, and we'll skip that one for now. So over here we do see another file that's welcome.blade.php. Now this is the file actually showing you the content on the front page, the one we see. Okay, so that's what we see now, and this is coming from here. Okay, all right. So now it's coming from here, we can prove it. So let's go ahead and make a bit of change. Let's see. So over here, now Laravel has a wonderful blah blah blah. Now this is coming from this documentation. Okay, now this is the word we see over here, documentation. Okay, so we can change a little bit over here. We'll do Laravel documentation and we'll save it. And once we come to our browser and refresh it, and we'll see the changes had been done immediately. So this is the file where we see that the source code is actually this one. Of course, now over here, if you see this file, it has welcome.blade.php. Now, Blade is a special templating engine that Laravel uses for generating HTML based on the controllers, okay? Because very soon we will see we have controllers and models, because Laravel follows MVC architecture, and it is controllers, and controllers outputs data to view, okay? And our view uses Blade engine to show the data to the user. Okay, and this is a default Blade or templating engine for Laravel. I think you can also use other type of templating engine, but Laravel default setup is Blade engine, okay? But any kind of Blade templating, that has to end with PHP, because after all, Laravel in its core, everything is PHP. Okay, all right. Now let's go and take a look at another site that we are going to build using Laravel. Okay, so for this demo example, we are going to, for front end, we are going to follow something like this, okay? And because we want to make it beautiful, so we are going to follow something like this. So for this one, over here, we do have a lot of CSS and HTML, and we're going to skip that because this tutorial will pretty much focus on Laravel, okay, and the PHP section, not really the front end HTML and the CSS. So we're not going to do that. So, but we want to build something like this, okay? So for this one, what we'll do, we'll go ahead and copy the code for now, okay? So I'll click over here and I'll do view source code, okay? Now I'll copy everything from here, okay? And after copying, I'll come to my VS Code. I'll do Control All, I'll remove all and put it there, okay? Now after this, over here, we'll come to our application and we will do this one, and we do see that we have changes, but our changes are not just like this, okay? So, well, now that's happening because it's missing some files over here, like for example this one, it's missing CSS. Now CSS is coming from this one, from this link. If you know how the basic CSS and the link and the sources that work, so this refers to the every code over here, right? So what I'll do, I'll go ahead and come over here and find this section, and this section should be somewhere down, let's see, okay, over here. So I'll just simply go ahead and replace, okay, because we want to be quick. Once again, as I said, we don't want to focus on CSS and HTML section, so we'll quickly make it up and running, and then we'll focus on Laravel framework and PHP related stuff. And I think we also need to get a reference of this source file over here. So I'll come over here, and I think that's at the bottom, and then I'll put it over here and I'll save it, and then we'll come to our server and our application and reload it. Hopefully this is much better, and this is exactly the one we see over here, okay? All right, so yeah, pretty much same thing, okay? All right, so now this file, welcome.blade.php, once again, this is coming from here, okay? Now, if you do have more files, more Blade file, which would represent the front-end HTML, pretty much you would put everything over here. But of course, if your project gets complicated, you will create more files. Okay, now of course this is not the end of the story. This file is being referred from somewhere from Laravel itself. So now that's being referred from within this routes and web.php. Okay, now for you, let's see, let's minimize it. Okay, so now this is our front page or our home page, and in web application or pretty much any kind of application, front page or front end, the home page is referred as slash, and this is what we see over here. So this is the router, and this router refers to our home page. Okay, home URL, and this is inside this routes folder, which is called web.php. And for your routes, pretty much all the routes, if you have in your Laravel application, you will define one by one over here. Okay, now we'll see an example very soon. So if I'm going to create a new route, say over here, so right after this would be our domain name, and after that, if we want to create a detail page, so the route name would be your domain name slash your route name, right? So this would be the route name. So now this route name reflects over here. So now soon we'll go ahead and create a new route, and we'll create a get route or get request. Okay, and one thing though, it also uses another facade that's called routes facade. Okay, and that does this get request and post request, things like that. Now inside this get request or get route, we do have an anonymous function. So that's how you can write in Laravel if you have a request, either it's a post request or get request. If you using format like this, you can always use anonymous function. Okay, so regardless it's get route or post route or get request or post request, they all can take anonymous function, and inside the function you return something, and that's called returning view. Now this view is referring to this one, well in our case the first one. Well, of course they're same, soon we'll change their names. So over here we'll do about. Okay, all right, well slash about, and now over here we'll call it about. Well, you can call it anything, or we'll go ahead and do detail just now as we saw. Now here we'll do detail. Okay, now detail refers to, over here slash detail refers to this slash detail over here. Okay, and this view detail refers to a file inside this views directory. So whenever you do like view and quotation inside this, you have a string name in general that refers to a file inside this views folder. Okay, of course you don't need to write welcome.blade.php, you don't need to do that, you just put the first part. Okay, now for detail itself, we don't have any file like that, so we'll go ahead and create a new file. So here we'll call it detail.blade.php. Okay, so over here, once again, this name doesn't have to be this name, they could be very different. Okay, all right. So now for now our blade detail blade is empty, and we'll come over here and copy all of this and we'll put it right here. Well, now we'll go ahead and save it, and we also save it over here. And with this, now we are pretty ready to visit our route, which is called detail route. Okay, so now once we hit the URL detail, so Laravel would come over here and try to look for route from web.php file, and it would see if it matches any kind of route or not. and if it does, then it would find the related view from the views resources. Okay, yes. All right, so now we'll come over here, and now we'll hit enter. Of course, we don't see any changes because these two pages are same, but we can go back and forth. Okay, now just before we deep down just before we dig, so we want to make a bit of change over here. Now we see that we have columns over here. Now this is Bootstrap, which uses columns to build grid format. Okay, and that's what it was doing just now. So we have a few columns over here, and these are all the columns. Okay, and for now we'll just keep only one column and rest will delete. Okay, now this time if we come over here to our browser and refresh it, let's see. Okay, well, looks like we need to remove more. There are 3 more to go. So I guess there was 9 of them. Okay. All right, so we'll save it. Now we'll come over here and we see that we have this one, only 1, and we'd make one more change. Now for now we'd always do this one. So we want to get the maximum space possible, but once again, this is front-end CSS. We don't want to bother about that one. We do see that it expands to the whole screen. Okay, all right. Well, now so far everything has been pretty static, and at the same time we also learned how to work with the route. But in real life, in your real world project, you wouldn't define your routes here like this. Yes, of course, you will define pretty much your routes in web.php file, but not really like this. Okay, all right. So, and here comes the controller. Okay, now first we need to make controller, and from the controller we'll return a view, and that view would be sent to the blade over here to the related files, related names files. Okay, now with view, one thing, well, if your application is really static like this, of course you can go ahead and structure like this. This is also not suggested or recommended though, but pretty much Laravel application all will have work with database. Okay, and in that case we'll get the data using models from data tables or database. We'll put it in the controllers, and controllers would send the data to the view, and at the same time controllers would define what view to show in the HTML. Okay, so that's how they are connected: view, model, view, controller. So model works with the database, and controller sits between view and model, and view just what we see. All right, okay, cool. So now first we'll go ahead and create a controller. Now over here we can create a controller manually inside this controllers folder. Okay, for now we'll remove that. Okay, yes, we can do that, but now Laravel provides some tools to do that. Okay, so over here we'll come over here and we'll do clear and we'll do ls. Now you can use convenient tools to create controllers. Now if you see over here, there is this artisan thing, which is a script, PHP script, and it creates controllers and a lot of things for you, not just controllers, model, and a lot of interesting thing you can do with this. Now to use this artisan, you have to start with PHP artisan, and you could do make controller and controller's name. Should tell Artisan to make a controller for us, but of course we need to define controller's name, whatever it could be. It could be user controller or any stuff, different thing like post controller. So it should relate to the job it would do. Okay, now if you ever forget what to do with PHP Artisan, you can always run PHP Artisan list, and over here we'll see a list of options that PHP Artisan do. In our case, we are seeing just now make. So in our case, we are going to create a controller. So make controller, create a new controller class. Okay, while Artisan does much more than just controllers or making things like this over here. It also does migrate and creating models, working with the models, and a queue, and a lot of other interesting things, but we'll see them slowly later. Okay, for now we'll do clear. Now over here we would run PHP Artisan make controller because we want to make a controller, and we'll call it post controller. Okay, now here you see it says controller created successfully. Now if we come to our VS Code, and here we see, so isn't it cool? With this you can create controllers, as many controllers as you want, and it's pretty convenient. And as I said earlier, it also extended the controller which we said before. Okay, now over here this controller lives in this namespace, which means where it could be found. So this kind of things we in Laravel we use namespace to define. So we say that this post controller could be found under this directory or folders. Okay, now we created this controller, and from our web.php we want to refer to the controller, and from here we want to return the view. Okay, well, to do that, first we'll remove everything from here and we'll rewrite. So we'll do route, and we're going to do a get request. We'll do get route get. Now first we do our home page, which is slash, and then over here we would say where our related view could be found under which method. Now here it may sound a little confusing first, so I'll explain more as we work through it. So over here first we write our controller's name, which is post controller, and over here it's a class and what method it should find in this class. In this class we should find index method. So that's the more standard way of describing writing your routes in Laravel. We'll save it. Now we'll come over here. So over here we'll create a function, public function, because it is being accessed from other files. So you need to tag it as public, and we'll name it index. You can name it anything you want actually. And after that, all we need to do, we need to return. Okay, so here we do return view, and what do you want to return? You want to return welcome view. Okay, and that's as simple as that. So what's happening over here? So when you hit this one, which means your domain or URL, now it would first come to web.php and try to find related home URL, which is slash, and then it would look for a controller, and then within that controller it would look for a certain method you mention. Well, you could mention different methods. For example, you could copy it and put it over here, and we could do detail, and over here we would write detail or anything. Okay, you can also call it detail post, it doesn't really matter. So in that case, all you need to do, you need to come over here and define a similar method, and the name would be detail post. Okay, so that's what we'll do. So we'll go ahead and copy this, and we'll put it right there, and the method name will say detail post. Now this name has to be this one. Okay, all right, and at the same time, over here you also need to mention what kind of view you want to return. So over here we saw earlier that we have a view, and which sits inside views folder, and views name is detail. Okay, so that's what we want to return. So here we'll just simply say detail. Okay, all right. Now of course, if you do have subfolder inside this view, say you created another folder, and inside that folder you have detail.blade.php, so you need to write your folder name over here, dot, okay, whatever the folder name you do, dot the blade file name. Okay, hopefully it makes sense. All right, now we'll go ahead and save them. Now we'll see what happens. So we'll do slash like this and refresh, and it says that post controller doesn't exist. And over here we'll do the same. It says that post controller doesn't exist. It says binding resolution exception. Okay, so Laravel was trying to find this one and bind it with our system, but it couldn't find it. So that's why it reported this error and crash. Now this happens over here due to this one. Over here we are saying that we have a post controller, but we didn't say where it is. So here you need to use the namespace, the one we saw early, but in this case we'll just use use, not as namespace. So when you refer a class or controller from another place to another class, then you use the use keyword. Okay, here we do app http controller, and within it we have post controller. We know it, right? We'll save it and we'll open it over here, and we know that our post controllers is inside app http controllers folder, and the controller name is post controller. So that's how you go ahead and define the path of this controller. Okay, now if we refresh it, let's see, HTTP controller doesn't exist. Okay, so we are making a mistake over here. It should be S. Okay, so now let's put S over here because controllers, sorry about that. So now let's refresh it. Okay, yes, we see that it exists, and we can hit the other route, which is detail route. Okay, and as we can see that it's working. Okay, so congratulations. So you just defined your first two routes, and you know where to define, how to define, and how to find the controller and do the related method. Okay, all right. Now, while this is a bit boring, we want to do more interesting thing, because for now the things are still pretty static, so we want to make them more dynamic. Okay, well, to make it dynamic we need to use database. Well, now to make database we have to access to MySQL, then we can use database. Okay, so first we'll go ahead and create database, and we'll store information in the database and retrieve them, and then we'll send them to the controller, and controller would send the data to the view we have seen earlier. Okay, now over here if you followed them, you should know how to create how to install your MySQL and how to keep them up and running. So I'm on Mac over here. So I'll check my MySQL. So I'll do MySQL version. So I do have a MySQL. Okay, and on Mac, I would go ahead and create a database. Now for Mac, I would use command line to do that. If you are following along from Windows and if you install XAMPP server, now in XAMPP server, most of the time you want to access the database, which should be managed from phpMyAdmin using localhost phpMyAdmin. Once you do that, you'll see it takes you to a phpMyAdmin page where you will go ahead and create an empty database, and that's all. Okay, all right, that's all you need to do, and then after that you can follow along with me. So we'll come over here, and if you're following along with me on Mac, here you do this one. So we'll enter underline MySQL. Now I'll type in my MySQL password for this user. Now here we are, and here we'll create a database. We'll do create database starter app. Okay, now it said one row affected, and we could also do show databases. Okay, and we see the starter app. So I do have other databases here, and this is the database that we are going to use. Okay, all right, so we created the database. Now if you come to our env file, which is over here, and we need to mention where our database and the password and username. So of course we are in localhost, so we are not going to change this one. Port is this one, and you should have the same if you are following along with the XAMPP server. Now over here we would change the database name, which is starter app. Username was root, and in my case I used this password. Okay, and over here you would put anything you like, it doesn't really matter. Okay, all right, now if you come over here, okay, now we'll exit it, and here it says bye. Now first we can go ahead and run php artisan migrate, and which will actually create a database named starter app, and at the same time it would also create a table which is called user tables. Okay, all right, now that would happen because of this one, because in Laravel we have some things called migrations, and we also have migration files, and that lives under database folder migrations. And if you see in default over here, we do have something called create users table, create password resets table, failed job tables, and a lot of other things. We'll just for now we'll focus on this one. We'll open it up, and over here we see that it says that create something called users and down something called users. So what will happen when we run this command, it will create a table named database, table name users inside this database. Okay, it will not just create one table, it will actually create 4 tables. Okay, but for now, most importantly, the users table. We'll take a look. We'll take a look at this user tables migration file. So when you run this command, this would get called. Okay, and the opposite command is php artisan migrate rollback, I think. So we'll see it soon. Let me take a look. Sorry, where we are. well, I made a mistake. Artisan list. Okay, now let's see over here. Here it says migrate rollback. So with migrate, this command, PHP artisan migrate, it will create tables in the database, and that's what will happen. Now we'll go ahead and run it. Now here, let's see what it says. Starter app, root, let me check, unknown database starter app. So what I'll do, I'll go inside our database over here, and I'll see what I did. Now here I'll do show databases. Okay, oops, this is starter app, I missed R. Anyway, so we'll just go ahead with this one for now. So starter app, so it's very important that you spell the name correctly, and I'll exit over here, and I would do this one. So now as you see, it created tables. Okay, so migrating based on this file, which we saw this one, it created 4 tables. Okay, so now once again we'll come inside this one and we'll see which database tables has been created. Okay, let me try it one more time. Most probably I wrote the wrong password. Okay, now here once again we will do show databases. So we have this database and we want to use this database, so we do use this. Alright, so database changed, and now here we do show tables. Okay, as you see, we have 4 tables. Alright, okay. Now in fact, we can also run further query over here, select everything from users. Okay, but we don't have any users for now. Okay, but it tells you that PHP Artisan is a very useful tool to do a lot of interesting things. So with this, without touching the database, you can create database and tables and a lot of interesting stuff. So it's a powerful tool, and most probably when you develop an app in your development phase, you would use this command and this tool a lot. Okay, now of course you could do rollback. Okay, so there are no more databases. Okay, all right, so they are gone. I mean, we can go ahead and check it like this. You can go ahead and do it. You can try to find show tables. You can run this one and you will see no tables there. Okay, anyway, we wouldn't do that, so we'll just go ahead with the earlier command. We'll run it one more time and it will create these things for us. Okay, all right, so now we know what are migration files and what they do. So when you run PHP Artisan migrate, this method gets called, and when you do PHP Artisan rollback, this method gets called. But there are much more than this. Once again, if you do this command, okay, there's called rollback, refresh, let's see, reset. Okay, so in general, fresh will drop everything and rerun all the migrations. Reset would reset everything. Okay, so most probably this is your best friend, rollback. Okay, fresh and reset pretty much would destroy everything, so you don't really want to run this 2 command. Okay, well, but now working with migrating these things, that should be part of another tutorial, not in this tutorial, because a lot more things we can learn. But with this basic idea, you should be up and running how to create tables and how to do the other things. Now over here we'll create a new table, okay, and we'll call it posts, but we'll do a bit different way. First we need to create a model. So once again we'll run PHP artisan make model. You want to create a model, and model name is post, and you can also input more options here. This dash option means migration file. This means that create a model file, a model class, and also create a database class, okay? Sorry, a migration class. That's what it means. If you just run this one, things like this command, it will create a model like this. Well, anyway, all the models are inside HTTP models folder. It will create a model like this, okay? But it won't create migrations. So if you mention /-m, it will create a migration file, and we'll take a look at it very soon. So now, if you see in this directory, models directory, we don't have any other models. We have only one model that's called user.php. So we'll go ahead and run it, and it says that model created, migration created as well. And that's what exactly happened. So this is our model class, and this way of creating model and classes is called Laravel Eloquent. Well, Eloquent is a model class, and using this one, you can work with the database tables. You can retrieve information from database table, you can add it, you can update, you can remove. Okay, so this kind of classes are called Eloquent Models in Laravel, okay? All right, and once again, with this powerful artisan command, it not only created a class, and it also gave you the blueprint, pretty much. But of course, we can do much more than this. But if we go ahead and take a look at our migrations directory, and over here we see that we also have a migration table. That's a migration class, which is this one. And here it says that create posts. So which means that it will create a table, name would be post. So if your model name is user, it creates a table name users. If your model name is post, it creates a table name posts. But you can override it, do default thing. But this is not what we'll talk in this tutorial. And at the same time, it will also give you the default fields in the database column, like ID and timestamps. Timestamps refers to when it created and when it updated, two fields actually. Now we want to add more fields in our database table. Over here we do table, and we do string, it's a data type, and the column name is title. Okay, we're going to create another column, and that's also string, and we'll call it excerpt or subtitle actually. And here we would create another title, and this would be text, another field that would be text type, and would call it content. And the last one, here we'll be creating another one, and we'll call it would be string type, and we'll call it image. Okay, now here we're gonna create a field in our column in our database table, which is post. Name would be title, data type is string. We'll create another column, name excerpt, data type string. String is shorter. Now text, pretty much unlimited text amount or content. And we'll create the next one, which is content, and data type is text, so you understand it. Now with the image one, actually we will save our image path inside this field, and after this we'll save it. Okay, and after saving it, I'll run php artisan migrate. Okay, here it says that create post table. It created a table named posts, and it migrated it. Okay, all right, which means it did everything successfully. Now if we do this one, then I'll go and check my database. So, sorry, I think I typed in the wrong password. here I would do use starter app. Now here we do show tables. Okay, now you see we have a table named posts. Okay, all right, to work with this I'll open up another terminal, and so I'll have two terminals so that it becomes easier to keep track what is going on. Now over here I would go to cd documents Laravel starter app. Okay, now inside this I'll run another command. Okay, that's called PHP Artisan Tinker. Okay, now this is a command shell where you can run many commands to interact with your database, to create new records in the database, and update your database and delete things from the database tables. Okay, yeah, so you would run PHP Artisan Tinker, and over here you can play with it. So you can operate on any tables you want. But for now, we'll focus on posts table, this one. Okay. Now, to create a record in the table, we first need to create an object using this Eloquent model. So here, what you do, we would create a variable, we'll call it posts. Post, you can call it anything you want, and here we do app. Now here we need to say where our models is and the model name. So based on this, we'll create an Eloquent object, and by using that object we can interact with a certain table. Now as I said earlier, this model refers to this table, and that's what happened here when you ran the migration. Okay, so now, for now, we'll hit enter. Let's see. Okay, I'm missing new over here. Oops, sorry about that. Okay, all right. So when you see this one, it means actually it created an object. Okay. Now we know that in our database we have these fields. Now ID in default is auto incremented. Okay, so we can't mess up with this one, but others we can set on our own. So that's what we'll do right now. So here, as I have an Eloquent object, so I can access these fields and set up their values. So here I would access the first one, title, and here I would say first title, and I'll hit enter. And when you see like this, it means worked. Of course, this kind of red means of course it's an error. Now I'll do the next one over here. I would do excerpt, first long excerpt. It worked. And then I'll do content. So here I'll do my very first long content. It worked. And then I'll do for image. Now image we'll put on our images folder. So here we'll do images tech1.jpg. That's what we want to put for now. I'll hit enter, and after this, when it is done, all these fields, you can just save it. And you don't really need to care about ID and timestamps. They are ran automatically. They run automatically, and you do like this. Okay? And it's true means it worked. It created a record using this information, and it put this information in these fields, and it's saved in the database, and it created a record. Okay, all right, and it did. How it did, we can prove it. So here we could do post find. Well, that's a Eloquent model method, and 1 means ID1. When you do like this, it gets you the related record from the database using this ID. Now we can run it one more time using 2, which means null, which means that it couldn't find ID2, which should match over here, so it returned null. Okay? Alright, so that's how you created this Eloquent model, and then you did this active record pattern, which means that here we put our data inside the database table and we inserted it. So this is called active record pattern. Okay, so we successfully have done it using this Eloquent model. First we created the model, and then we created an object, and then for that object we found the related fields and we gave them value, and then we saved them, and after that we could find them. But of course you could also do another method which is called all, but now it gives you a collection. But look, it's a bit different, right? Here you just have one curly braces, but here you do have a lot more and other information. Okay, so it gives you a collection, but of course in our case we just have only one. Now I'll go ahead and create a new record and insert in the database, and for this one this time I will do post new posts and hit enter. Okay, so you don't have to really specify, and if you don't, Laravel would find automatically for you. It tries its best to find it for you. Okay, now here I'll do this one, so I'll do second title. Okay, now I'll go ahead and do this one. Post save. Okay, now it would save, and this time if we run post all, and here we'd see this, we have created these two records with ID1 and ID2. In fact, we can access them separately using ID. So this is the first one. We can do find second, and you could also do like post first, so it would get you the first one. Okay, like that. There are much more than this, but we'll learn them slowly. So now this is one way to create some record in our database and save them. Okay, and well, they're being saved in the database, and we can also do a query over here. Okay, now over here we do select everything from posts. Yeah, that's all. So we do see that in our database record, in our database table, this record has been created. First title, second title, and things like that. At the same time, we see that ID has been created and with their timestamp. Okay, and that's how it works. Okay, now we'll see the third way to the other way to create these records and save into database. Well, for this one, now this time we were creating one by one like this. Okay, and which could be annoying, so we can create a record in the database at a time, not using like that. So for that one, here actually we would call, here we just simply do post create. We'll use the create method of this from this Eloquent. Now here we would do the fields in an array. Okay, so here we do, of course we don't do ID, so here we do title, and then we do say third title and comma. Here we do excerpt, so I'd go ahead and be quick. This way, you can create a record in your database and save it directly. And you can hit enter. And after that, we see this error. Now, this is called mess assignment exception error. Well, here mess means a lot. If you know, in English, mess means a lot. So I'm trying to assign a lot of information at the same time. And Laravel thinks it's not safe, and that's why it says that you should explicitly mention which fields could be saved in a method like this, okay, which means which fields you can go ahead and create values and save using a method like this and save the information in the database and create a record, okay. Now it says that first go ahead and create a title to fillable property in this post model. Okay, that's what it's saying. Once again, this is an error that because Laravel thinks it's not safe because you are trying to create a record and you are trying to put the value of this field at a time, and which could be malicious, scary, or hacking. Okay, or someone is trying to mess up with your database. Unlike we saw early, if you use it like this, it happens one by one, okay? But this is happening at a time, which is not safe in Laravel's eyes, and I think this makes sense, okay? So now it's saying that go ahead and find this model and create a field named title, and the property should be fillable, okay? Now this title has to do with this one. All it's saying that if you're really going to do this thing, you need to explicitly mention that this could be done like this, and the property has to be fillable. So here we'll go to post method, post model. We'll open our post model, which is let's see. So I'll click this one. We don't need this one. We also didn't need this environment env file. Now model, post model. Okay. So here I'll create a field, and field will be protected type, and name is fillable, and that's exactly what this message told us, fillable property. Okay. And now here we do title. Okay, now we'll save it and you run it one more time. Now this is happening, most probably this is still in memory, so I'll copy this one and here I'll exit. I would do Control-C and I would do PHP Artisan Tinker and I'll paste what I copied. Okay, alright, so that was in the memory because we already did that, right? So over here now it's saying new error that this feels like title updated, they don't have default value. So even after you did that, it's being cranky. It says that you need default value. It says that okay, now title could be fillable, but other properties they don't have a default value. So you need to have default value for them. Okay. Now the one way to solve this problem, you could do like this. You can mention all the properties to be fillable. For example, excerpt, and over here content, and over here image. So that means that all these fields could be inserted with value in the database with one try like this. Okay, so I'll copy this one and I'll exit from here, Control-C, and then I'll hit enter and paste it. Now here it says that we created another Eloquent object in our database with ID 3. Okay, and now if we run post all, post all, because we didn't create an object, so we can use our Eloquent model or the model name, which is this one, and just write all, and then we can access them. Okay, so now here 说话声音太大了. So over here we see that we have this 3 records in the database. So this is the other way to go ahead and create. Okay, now of course we can do more. For example, we can change it. Okay, and we can create one more record using this one, and over here it should be 4th. Now it should be 4th title. Now I'll copy this one first because it might be in the memory, and then it, oh yes, it worked. Now here we do post all, which are this. Okay, we can also do post find for the last one. Okay, 4th title. So hopefully it makes sense.
Well, now over here ID is auto protected because when we create a table, in general ID is auto increased, and for that special reason ID cannot be part of mass fillable assignment thing. But of course if you assign over here explicitly mention, in that case someone can mess up with your ID, but in general if you don't write it here you are good. Okay, now there is another way to do this thing. Now fillable tells you that which properties should be fillable when you fill things in a mass assignment or fill things, a lot of them at a time. Okay, like all of this. Now that tells you which fields should be fillable. I mean, we can fill them and we can assign them and we can save them. But now the opposite is called guarded. Okay, G-U-A-R-D-E-D. Now this tells you just guard a few of the fields or just guard certain fields that's mentioned here. In that case, ID is guarded. That means that this cannot be part of fillable property, or this cannot be part of mass assignment. So when you try to assign like this, okay, and if you try to assign ID, for example, we can go ahead and try it. So here we could do ID 10. Now, well, first I'll copy this thing, and we also need to save it here. Now let's go ahead and do it. So let's try to hit enter, and here you see, even though just now I did 10, but it didn't work. Okay, ID is 5 because previously the ID was 4. So that's how it works. Okay, all right, now with this we are able to successfully create records in our database using different ways. First one was using post object, okay, like this. Okay, the other one was just now we saw. So this is how you can create records in the database. Okay, now how about if you're going to edit them? Well, we need to edit like the last one. Here we need to edit this text, like it shouldn't be 4th, it should be 5th, and as well as the image itself, right? Now to edit a certain record from database, in general, first you do like this. You'd create an object and then you'd say post find an object using the ID. So we'll use ID 5. So we want to find it and find that object, find that record and save it in this object. Okay, all right, so we do that one. So it got it, Now here we could do post title. So here we do fifth title like this, and then we can also do the other one like excerpt. Okay, we could do fifth long excerpt, just like that, and the content. Okay, my very fifth long content. Okay, and then here we can also edit the image. All right, now here we do and after that you just simply do post, save, and you will get true. Okay, post all last, just like that. Okay, so it did get you the last one. Now here, as you see, so we're successfully able to edit the data. Okay, all right, so that's how you get the last one. And if you still want to get the first one, I think you could do first. Okay, all right, and others in general you'd get through using ID, using the find method. Okay, all right, so now with this, now we are able to successfully save the data in the database, and we can also retrieve them. But of course we do have our other terminal, and take a look over here. So over here we could do like this one. Okay, now here we do see that in our database we have all these 5 records. Okay, so it means that data has saved in the database and in the data table as well. Okay, well, now after this it is time to show this data in our front end. Okay, now over here this is our model, Eloquent model class. Because of this one, in our controller we'd be able to access this model, which means that the related table and the records like row and column. Now it would be exactly the same methods that we have used over here. Okay, and that's as simple as that one. Okay, all right, now another thing we need to do here, I'm saying many times that we do have folder which is called images, and inside it we have some images. So of course we need to put those images inside the folder. So first I'll exit from MySQL, and then I'll come over here and we'll do mkdir. No, we'll go to public folder, and inside public folder we'll create a new folder. Okay, we'll call it images. We'll run mkdir images. So that would create a new directory for us, which would be images directory. Okay, now over here we'd open dot. Now with this we'd be able to get the items in this folder, which is inside public folder. Now of course we don't have any images, so we need to put the images over here. For this one I'll come to my other folder, and over here I'll drag and drop this, and I'll put inside the images folder. Okay, and with this inside images folder we have the images. All right, now after that, now we can simply go ahead and we'll go to our front end, and definitely we'll be able to show the images. All right, now the first thing first, so we'll come to our home router, which refers to our index method. Now over here we'll simply create a method and create an object, and based on this post Eloquent, which is this post model, and now over here we do say all, just like we did just now, last. Okay, we'll get the last one, and after getting the last one we'll return it to this blade using this brackets. Over here we'll return it in a variable, we'll call it post, and now here we'll send this the object that we created. All right, now here we'll save it. Now let's see what's going on. Well, I think VS Code was cranky, but it was not any kind of error. Now it's gone. Anyway, now here is another thing we could do. Before we send it to this front end, to this view, to this blade, we can do a simple debugging, use DD. DD means dump and die, okay, just like that. So you'd be able to see this object and its properties that it contains inside. Okay, so we'll save it over here. Now we'll come to our browser. Now over here, this was our front end. Now we'll refresh it, and here of course it says that the post class cannot be found. Now here of course this is our model. So here we need to use the model, we need to mention the model path. That's why here we do app models post, okay, because this post Eloquent class resides sits inside this models directory. Okay, so now we'll save it. Now come over here. Okay, now we see that it has a lot of properties over here. Now we do see that guarded one, which is ID, which we have already seen. And now the other important property is this attributes, and inside this we can see that we have retrieved the last one. Now definitely, of course, you could go ahead and do first. Okay, now we'll dump and die, and attributes over here we see the first one. So it means that from our database we can retrieve the information using this Eloquent, and then we are able to pass the data to the front end. Of course, just now we are using dump and die, but now we'll not do that. Now here we'll simply pass this object to this post variable or the post object. Now all we need to do, we need to come over here and retrieve this information in this blade. So I'll open up my blade, which was earlier. Let's see, I'll close this one. Inside this resources, views, and welcome. Okay, all right, now I'll close this one. Now over here, I remember we had 9 of them, and I guess this is the first one. Let's see, by example. Okay, so which is over here, which has called the word thumbnail. Okay, so this should be the first one because this is the first column. Okay, now inside this first column we can retrieve our information from this controller. Now when it returns, it already sends this object to this variable. So if you want to catch an object in the front end, in the blade, all you need to do, you need to use the curly brace. Okay, so for example, we want to remove this one, and over here we want to show our content, and to show the content we need to use this curly braces 2 times, and then the object that has been passed, which is this one. Of course you can name it anything, it doesn't matter. And over here we do content. Okay, now do remember this is exactly the same thing we did. For example, we could do all. Now here you can just simply do like this, post all, get the last one. Okay, now you can simply do post title. Okay, now it printed the title, and this is exactly the same thing we are doing, but because we're in the blade now, so that's why we need this curly braces. Okay, all right, and after this we'll just simply save it, and we'll see that what happens. Now we'll come over here and we'll refresh it, and we do see that my very first long content. Okay, so that's what we have. Okay, so it means that right now successfully we have built this MVC model, which stands for model view controller. So this is our view, this is our model, and this is our controller. Well, for now our model doesn't do anything, but because it did an eloquent relationship for us, and because of this one, because of this class, this keyword, we can access a lot of the properties for that database table over here, and that's good enough. All right, so now we can get the first one. Actually, we can get all of them, and this time, one more time, we will do dd post. Okay, and we'll save them. Now let's come over here. Over here, all this, the collection, the items, it has returned in a property called items, and we have 5 items over here, and as you can see, these are all over here. Okay, all right. So now there is other way to get this. We can do get. Now we'll save it using get method. Now let's save it. Now you see pretty much the same exact thing. Okay, all right. Now there's a little difference between get and all. Get is directly part of Eloquent model. Sorry, all is directly part of Eloquent model, and get is part of query builder. Query builder, which means that use this one, you can actually access database table like this. For example, you do dd, table name is posts. Okay, just like that. Okay, so pretty much like this. Well, for get, actually, if you really want to use a get, and that's part of the query builder, and query builder is pretty much like this. You'll create an object like post, and here you'll have div facade, and then you'll mention the table name. In our case, table name is posts, and then you can just simply do get. Okay, but for this one, we need to import the facade and its path, which is called div facades. But for now, we're not going to use that one. We'll stick to this one. Okay. Now, anyway, let's save it and make sure things are fine. So let's refresh it. So our controller takes it, and we can post them in our front end, right? I mean, send them. Now, so this is the time we get rid of this one. Okay. Now, what it would do, it would send a collection, like more like in an array. So over here in our front end, we need to grab them in this array. We need to grab them and look through this array and show it one by one. Well, just now we saw that we have 9 of this, so we don't need 9 of this. All we need just 1, and then we'll set up this array inside for each loop, and then we'll loop through them. So all we could do right now, the other 8 we can delete. We don't need them. So right now we are left with only 1. Okay, this one. Now this is a column. Now this column should run as many times the records we have in our database. Now, for example, we could do post count. So we have 5 records. So this would run 5 times. Anyway, so now what we'll do, we'll wrap this one around for each loop. Okay, so I'll simply cut this one. Now, to create a for each loop in Laravel Blade, you do at for each, that's it. And then you'd receive the variable that's been passed from here. But now this time I want to pass the variable as a post, because actually we do have a lot of posts. Okay, so let's be correspondent. Now we'll save it. You can just do post, but because we are passing all of them, so I want to make it plural. Now here, we'll grab them in a variable posts. Now this variable is this one. Now we'll loop through them as post. Now each post would refer to one of the record from this posts, or from this record in the database. Okay, And then we'll finish the for each loop using end for each. Okay, now here inside this you'll put your HTML code. So that's how, using Laravel Blade, you write PHP code inside HTML or with HTML together. All right, now if we save it, now we go ahead and run it. Let's make sure we are doing good over here. Yes. Now let's go ahead and run it. Yes, we see my very first long content, second content, third content, right? Beautiful. Now over here, actually, we can also show the images. Now do remember, images are saved in images folder, which is inside public folder. Now over here, I'll remove this one, and this section I'll use as image source. Okay. Now to be able to access image in Laravel Blade, and which also has a path from our controller, because controller gets the path from this Eloquent model and sends it to the front end, to the Blade. Now, so this is coming from our database. Okay, and those database, the path is saved in the database. The image path, they are saved in the database, but the image itself saved in the public folder. Okay, so if you want to access your assets from public folder, now simply you do first this one, this brackets once again, but of course you need to wrap it around this double quotation because source need that, and then you will call a function which is called asset. Okay, asset, you'll access the name of the field, which is post image. That's as simple as that one. Because our images are inside this public folder, and anything inside public folder you want to access using assets function. Okay, now because this is a PHP function or a Laravel function, so you need to wrap it around this curly braces like this one. Anything that shows, anything that comes from the controller and you want to show it in Laravel Blade, you need to access using curly braces. Okay, all right, now we'll go ahead and save it. So now let's come to our front end. Now let's refresh it, and it looks like we don't see our images, and let's make sure that everything has been saved. Okay, now let's see what's happening. Now we'll click on this and look at the code, that what and where things went wrong. Let's see, we were supposed to see the image, which we didn't. Now here we do see that in our local host we do have this images. So what I'll do, I'll simply copy the link and come over here, put it, and yes, we can see that. So that means that over here we need to we might have a problem in our code itself over here, but not the link. Okay, one more thing. Yes, I know why we don't see the code, the picture, because this is SVG. So all I do, I'll change it to img tag. Okay, all right, and then I think we also don't need this text, so we'll just simply go ahead and remove it. Okay, now let's save it. Now let's come over here, come to our front end. Beautiful. Yes, so with this, now we almost build a responsive website, as you can see over here. Now of course, for responsiveness the credit goes to Bootstrap, not to Laravel, but yes, our data is correct, that we can say. Now that's how simply you can build a simple website so quickly using Laravel and Blade. Okay, so it means it's working. All right, so now next we'll see how to click on this and go to the detail page. Okay, Now we do have a detail page, but over here we don't see much things. Okay, now we need to send the data over here from our home page. Okay, all right, now part of the work we have already done. We already set up this route for our detail page, but now because we want to click on this and we want to click on any of this and dynamically get the ID and go to the next page and retrieve it. That's what we want to do that. Okay, now for this reason we need to put a slash over here, and we need to create the variable over here that would capture the ID, which is the ID of our database record, the row ID. Okay, now here I'll put it in a variable called post. Okay, and that's all. Now after this would, sorry about that, so this would contain the ID. But now for this one we need to make a bit of change in our welcome blade. So over here we want to click on this image and go to a new page. Okay, now I would cut this one over here. I would do a href. Okay, and I will close it over here. Now within this I'll put this image. Okay, now over here I need to put our URL or route. Okay, now as you can see over here, this is wrapped using this detail. So what first thing we need to do over here, we need to do detail over here. So that's what we do. We do detail. Okay, and after that, now the ID is the dynamic part, which would be coming from our post object, which is this one, and that's why once again we'll have this one. Okay, that's as simple as that one. Now we do post ID. Okay, all right, now once again this matches with the endpoint, which is this one, or the route. Okay, which is this one. Now we'll go ahead and save it. Okay, now let's come to our browser. Now let's hover on them, and at the corner, bottom left corner, we can see that as we hover over, we have different ID over here. Okay, so it means which is already working, and we can go back and come back. Okay, and on the URL, as you see that, we do see the post ID, right? Okay, great. So that means it's already working. But of course, we need to retrieve the information based on the ID. So we send the ID to the database, we get the ID. Now after getting this ID, we come to this function, right? So definitely we come over here. So all we need to do, we need to grab it over here. Now grabbing this ID in Laravel, we use a special method, I would say, that's called, you can do it many different ways. One of my favorite ways is called route model binding. Once again, it's called route model binding. So from its name, as you can see, it binds the model and route. So what is a route? A route is this one, okay? And what is our model? Which is this one, post.php. So we want to bind them. Well, it may sound difficult, but it is not. Actually, it's pretty easy. Okay, for route model binding, well, in your method, the method that's pointed from this route, which is this one, in this method, you'll pass a parameter, and the parameter should be your related model. So in our case, our model is post, and we'll create a variable or object based on that. Okay, because over here, this route eventually would get object from this model, right? So that's why over here simply we can create this object even though we are not passing it from here, but Laravel would automatically handle for us. Once again, this kind of handling is called route and model binding. So based on your route and the model you want to use, you can actually, if you have other routes model, it doesn't matter. So you can do your other model, but of course it has to be the corresponding, the correct one. You cannot just randomly assign any kind of model. You'll get random wrong data. So in this case, we want to bind post model and this route over here, and that's why we put it over here. And after that, we can simply do one thing over here. Okay, so with this, the binding would be done, and all we need to do here, post. Okay, now once again, this name could be anything, but this variable is this variable. But this variable has a special property. This has to be exactly the same name as this one. So if you change the name over here, you also need to change the name over here, which means over here as well. So what will happen? So as we hover over on it and as we click on it, so based on this ID, what Laravel will do from here, because of this one, based on that ID, it will get the related object. And then as it gets it, it will put over here, and now we are simply passing it, okay? So for each different ID, it gets the related object and pass to it. And that's it. Now we'll save it, okay? And saying that, now what we could do, we'll come over here in our blade detail, which is this one, okay? Now we'll open it up, and over here we'll be able to access that information, okay? So here, once again, we'll do double curly braces. Now here we'll do post and content. All right, I will save it. All right, so because of this route model binding, which happens from here to here using this model, and the ID is get from as we click over here, so we get the related object from the database record and pass to this view, which is our detail blade. Over here we can access this. Now we'll save it. Now we'll refresh it first, and we'll click on this. As you see, the first one, my very first long content, my very fifth long content, and the ID is 5. Excellent, which means it's working, which also means that we can go ahead and use the image over here. Now for the image itself, what I will do, I will just copy this one over here and just to replace it simply. That's as simple as that, because our object name is also post in this case. All right, now let's come over here, let's click on this. Yes, we see the image, and it's a bit ugly looking, so let's fix it very quickly. Now over here we could do height auto, and let's see how it goes. Okay, so it automatically fits as our image. Okay, let's click on this. Yes, for each post we get a different ID. So with this, you're already done with a very simple basic website, and you already learned how to work with this controller, model, and view. And the last thing before I finish this tutorial, now this is also a Laravel thing. Now as you see over here, a lot of this information, like header information and this footer information, we are repeating. Same over here. I mean, whatever we put there and we put over here, only the body section change, which is inside this for loop. And for this one, which is inside this column, and everything else stays the same. Okay? Well, for this reason, actually, we can concise and make a layout, which means the common information we can save in one file, and the uncommon information we can save in our related file. Okay, so I'll come over here inside this view, and I'll create a new file, and I'll call it layout.blade.php. Actually, you can call it anything you like. Now over here in the layout, first I'll copy this one, all this information, and I'll put over here. And just now we know that over here, okay, Well, let's see, this column section would be different, right? Only this column. So now over here I'll remove this and I'll create a new section for it. Okay, and over here I'll use a special derivative, I think directive they call it, sorry, special directive, which is called yield, and yield will get this content keyword. Now where is this coming from? This would be coming from your welcome page. Now welcome page, for here what we'll do, we'll remove the unnecessary thing. We'll remove this section over here, and over here we'll remove this section. Okay, all right, so now this would be inside our content section, so I'll cut this one, and here first I'll do add section, and section name is content, and then we'll do end section. Okay, and inside this we'll put our code. So now this content keyword is referred over here. Okay, now one thing we need to do over here, we need to extend this layout. Okay, so here for this one we'll do extend. Now here we need to say layout. Okay, so what will happen, so over here from controller, when we refer to this welcome blade, now this one file, this one welcome blade.php, then what it'll do, it'll first find this layout, which is called this layout, I mean this file, which is this one. Okay, it'll find this one, and then inside this layout file it'll try to find a keyword which is called content, and we already embedded it, content. Okay, so if it can find the content, then what you do, it would put this information over here, replace it. Now Laravel will do it automatically for us, but it saves us a lot of coding. Okay, and it also helps you to manage your thing. Now the same thing we would do for our detail blade. Okay, so for this one would remove this section. Okay, and let's see, so this is a column and we don't need any of this. Now we're just left with this column section. We'll cut this one. Now over here we'll do section content and end section. Now we'll put it over here. Now once again we need to do the extents of our layout. Okay, so this way, now the header and the footer, all you need to do, change only in one file, not in every file. Okay, that's another beautiful thing about Laravel templating engine. Okay, all right, now we'll save it. Now we'll come over here. Now we'll refresh it. Okay, nothing changed. Everything stays same as before, but our code became more professional. Okay, now we do see that we have a bit of issues over here. Now that's because maybe in detail we have a wrong section, or we removed some interesting section. So from lay blade over here, layout blade, let's see. Okay, we need this section. Let's copy this one and come over here and put it inside this, and over here this one, copy this and put it right after this, so we become organized. Now in layout itself we don't need this, so let's save it and make sure that in welcome blade it's the same thing. Now welcome blade, we are happy with this column for now, and we need the same thing over here as well, so I'll copy this one and put it in welcome blade right here, and this section as well. Okay, all right. Okay, now with this, our content section, the HTML part is similar, okay, both for welcome and applied. Now we'll come over here, we'll refresh it. Let's see. Okay, well, now there's the other part that we need to change. If you come to detail over here, now as you see, this section, so we want to get 100% width. Okay, so we'll change them. Now let's save it. Okay, we're doing good. That's the first one. All right, the fifth one. Beautiful. So with this, just quickly, we built a simple Laravel website, and at the same time, we mastered the MVC pattern of it. And after this, you should have a better understanding how to build a website using Laravel, and especially how to work on the backend section, like the controller and model and view, things like that. So if you liked it, don't forget to subscribe because I have more cool tutorial coming up. Thank you so much.